I'm Justin Bransford. I'm a bass player in New Mexico and beyond. And welcome to Bass Lab. This is a show dedicated to New Mexico bass players. And today I'm joined by Gilbert Uribe from Nosotros. And he's one of my favorite bass players around New Mexico and internationally too. And we're going to get right into this and start asking him some questions, and then we're going to get a special performance from him at the end. A special performance with, he's got his computer and his bass, and he's got some grooves ready to go, and it's going to be really cool. So anyway, so I want to start with just tell me about the beginning of your musical journey. When did you start playing music? How old were you, and what were you into at that point in time?
Ooh, I was 13 years old, and Red Hot Chili Peppers just came out with Blood Sugar Sex Magic, and I was a huge Chili Peppers fan, and previously like Mother's Milk and Freaky Styley, like all the old stuff. But when Blood Sugar Sex Magic came out, we had a music store in Las Cruces Musicland in the mall, and they used to sell the big tablature books, and they had the whole album. Like I remember I saved money to get it. It was like $25 at the time, which actually isn't really bad for as big as the book was. And it had bass tab and it had guitar tab. And so I had learned all the guitar stuff I could, and I learned the bass stuff out of it. And there was just something about the bass that like my brother had gone off to college and left a 73 fretless Fender bass.
Fretless.
And he's left-handed, so he had it tweaked so it was upside down so he could play it, so he was left-handed. So when he had left to college, he had left it with us. My dad's kind of like a collector with the Fenders. He likes the Fender instruments. So like he talked my brother into leaving it with us, and so when he left it, we put it back to right-handed, and I learned on that bass. Like I learned how to play bass, and that's when I was like, I want to be a bass player. Like it was those bass lines from that album that I was really like, wow. And then I had been turned on to like Jaco Pastorius at the time too, and but I wasn't thinking that far ahead yet, you know. Jaco was just like mind blowing, but just hearing him and being like hearing what the bass can do.
Yeah, what is that sound? Right?
Yeah, you know what I mean?
That's interesting that your first bass was a fretless bass. Just so happened in a lefty fretless bass, like that seems like a few steps away from just, you know, being home doing your thing on the bass, but that was your start in there.
That was it. Yeah, I locked myself away for summers. I kind of had the habit of doing that in summertime. You have downtime, and music is all I ever wanted to do. So it was just I would stay in my room and I would play along with albums and CDs and stuff.
Oh, okay. You played along with a lot of records.
Yeah, just getting that. Like, how does that sound come out and stuff? Especially after hearing that, because then I got turned on to like the meters and stuff like that, and so it just, you know what I mean, the doors just blew wide open.
Yeah,
like that summer. But and since then I've been primarily, I started originally on guitar, but it didn't really last long. There was something about having to learn chords, I guess that's what it was, and for some reason bass, just the rhythmic part of it, because even now playing Latin music, I look at bass as a percussion instrument, like it's part of the drums and it's part of that family. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So like, there's just something, and my father is a drummer, so there was that to it. So there was something about that, and also when he said, "You want to play bass," he gave me Tower Power album and said, "Listen to these guys."
Wow.
And so I was like, okay, with me and my brother, because my brother is actually a bass player, but my brother likes to play metal music, and I was the one that kind of went on into like the funk and soul and all that.
So your dad was a drummer. Now, do you remember going to see your dad play gigs or anything like that when he was?
Yeah, we would help him. I actually just had like this memory thinking about stuff with this club in Las Cruces called Victoria's that they would play at. We would go every time they played. He would take us to go help set up. So we would spend Saturday mornings in that club, and I remember we're like, don't go near the bar. You would have to stay here. And like if I go to the bathroom, I would walk along the wall past the cigarette machine, because you know it was back in the day when they had cigarette machines in the bars and you could smoke in bars and stuff.
Yeah.
And I just remember, and then seeing photos of them from like band photos of them that they took there. And it's like old school 70s, so they got like the suits and all that stuff. But I just remember that stage, and it's closed down now. And there's this Juan Gabriel song called Noa Noa, and it's about a club. And then I was recently listening to the song Come Dancing by the Kinks, and I call that like the white Noa Noa. You know what I mean? And it got me thinking about Victoria's, because in Cruces that would be like our Noa Noa, or like our Pally, like in that song.
Interesting.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
Yeah, it's a very old school club. So when I go to Cruces and I drive past, I kind of get sad that it's closed down. Because I remember as a kid, it seemed so much bigger. And then I drive past now and I'm like, it's a really small club. Like, it's a really small place. Yeah. And I remember it being huge inside. And it had like a VFW kind of vibe. You know what I mean? But like ever since I was a kid, he would take us to gigs. You know, we had 2 sons, so it was free road crew. You know what I mean? So it was always like, so ever since we always just helped out with gear. Even now I go see my brother play, and I'll grab stuff. And, you know what I mean? I go see you or help. Hey, bro, you know, we help each other out.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's the biggest part of what we do.
Yeah, and my daughter's been to plenty of gear setups. Like, okay, honey, we got to go set up for the gigs. She knows what that's about.
Right, the work. That's the actual work. I always tell people when they hire me, you're really hiring me to come set up and do all that stuff. Like, I'll play for free. I love to play. But it's really the getting there, you know what I mean? I have to drive an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Or I have to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, and then I have to set up here somewhere where there's no power or in the dirt. You know what I mean? So I'm like, you're really paying me for that.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah, that's the stuff you pay us for.
Yeah, for sure. Like, playing, we love it. Like, you know what I mean?
You got to get there, though. You got to afford to be there somehow.
Absolutely. But we love what we do, so it's like, we'll do it. But that's really what you're paying for. Is that's the work, technically, of it all.
So a lot of people know you from being the bass player for Nosotros, and I wanted to know the story of how you got to join the band and how that was for you, and tell us the story of moving up from Cruces and how that all happened for you.
That, I recently thought about that recently because September 11th, the memorial, that for me is 23 years being up here in Albuquerque and Santa Fe from when the band asked me to join. So that's kind of how like I look at the anniversary too. Like that's how I remember when I first moved up here.
Helps you remember.
Yeah, I was only here for like a month, and I was sleeping on the couch at my brother's house. I hadn't had a place yet. Like the band, like my brother lived with Shane, our guitarist, and another friend from Las Cruces, and then the house next door was the band house, which was Dave, Dennis, Justin, and Randy.
So you moved up here knowing that you were going to play with them?
Yeah, I got, so like I was living, I moved to Albuquerque in 98, right after I graduated high school.
Oh, wow.
And didn't really do anything. My brother was living up here at the time, so I just was living and working, doing like campfire boys and girls and the YMCA and like just jobs like that. And I was here for about a year and a half, and then I ended up going back to Cruces. And while I was there, I started playing with some bands down there and kind of tried to cut my teeth because, you know, music is really what I wanted to do, and trying to figure out a way to how to pursue that. So I got a gig playing percussions with a band called the House Rockers down in Cruces, which was like my best friend's older cousin's band. And James Narvaez, phenomenal blues guitarist, huge influence on, like, he showed me a lot because I ended up moving on from percussions to rhythm guitar with the band. And I was playing with them one night, and Randy came out and saw us. He was already living in Albuquerque.
Randy Sanchez, yeah,
from Nosotros.
Okay.
And I was playing percussion with the House Rockers and stuff, and we had chatted, and then he had come out again when he was in town, and he was just like, yo, you know, like, we need a sound engineer. We're looking for somebody to travel with us, and we need somebody, like, we're getting kind of busy, and we have all this stuff. It's kind of a big band. And my father had a sound company in Cruces, and well, he still does. He'll still work sound gigs and DJ gigs and stuff like that. So I've always grown up in that, like, the behind the scenes thing. I even did tech theater in high school.
Cool.
So sound reinforcement, I've always been part of what I do. So I took the gig. I was like, well, why not? Like, yeah, like, I'm just playing with these guys, but, you know, it wasn't necessarily for them. Music it was more of a pastime. Everybody had jobs, and we would just play for fun, you know what I mean? And so what Randy was offering with nosotros was like, well, we all are musicians. Like, this is what we do full time. So I was like, that's what I want to do. You know what I mean? And like, to me, the foot in the door, I remember when I told everybody too in the band that I was like, so you're just going to go run sound? And I'm like, well, yeah, but I imagine like there's going to be other stuff too. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not just going to be a sound engineer. Like, I will be able to play my instruments and learn, and I'll be in Albuquerque, you know what I mean? I could find some other people to jam with, and you know what I mean? So to me, it was just more like, I was trying to find a way to get back to Albuquerque, and that when that opportunity arose, it was like the perfect opportunity. And so I would barely, like, he asked me to join, and then within a week, I had gathered everything and was like, all right, he's like, we'll be back next week to play a wedding at the Farm and Ranch Heritage Museum. And that was my first gig running sound for them. And right after, the next day when they went back to Albuquerque, I went back. I followed back with my stuff. And was like, I'm in Albuquerque now. But my brother was up here, so like that's what kind of always kept me rooted here.
Yeah.
And stuff.
Yeah.
So like I have a bit of a foundation here. So I was like, yeah,
Cool.
I'll go, you know what I mean? And then Justin McLaughlin, the bass player at the time, he grew up best friends with my cousin Jared. So I knew Justin, and I've known Randy from the scene. Dave Diaz at the time, he was a legend in the scene. So to me, it was just like, yo, I want to kind of go be around these guys. You know what I mean? Musicians, a lot of times you put yourself around better players to make you better. You know what I mean? You go and you try to go be around people that you're going to learn from.
It almost seems like Nosotros is somewhat like a family, you know? Like, I get this vibe that you guys have always been a family, and it's got this mystique about it that's, you know, that's really cool like that. You guys seem to take care of each other a lot, you know?
I think there is a family thing going on, because now, so Dennis, Randy, Shane, and myself were originally the core of the band, are from Cruces, but now our percussionist Jesse Joaquin is from Cruces, and Michael Trujillo Artimalero is from Cruces. Like, Mike, I went to church on Sundays, and Mike and his sister were our choir, like our music. Like, she played guitar, and they sang and stuff. And so, like, I've known Mike also for a very long time.
Wow.
So and the same thing with Jesse. Jesse, they all went to NMSU down there. And so, like, there's a real tightness for at least 6 of the band. And then everybody else that's part of the band now is just really cool and have really jumped in and have been in. So we do kind of just absorb all that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like everybody is from Cruces, even though 6 of us are. But I think the fact that the 6 of us are is what makes it so more welcoming for everybody else, because we are just kind of like, like, we're a crew. When we go places out of town, it's very, like, we go in, like, we need, how many people? Oh, we need this table for 11. And they're like, give us like 40 minutes. And then we go in, and then it's all kind of rowdy. And we're not even trying to be rowdy, but it's just the energy, like having conversations and people laughing. It's like,
what are some of the challenges being committed to a band long term? I mean, we've been talking about some of the advantages, sort of the family element, you know, having your homies with you when you travel, you know. But what are some of the challenges you think being committed to a band like long term as an artist?
Well, I don't really, it's hard to say, because I've never really looked at it as, because for me, I did leave the band at one point and was able to leave and go play with Radio La Chusma and do some other stuff, and came back. Randy also left as well too. We were able, it's good like that, where you can go out and try things and get more experience, and then you bring it back and your spot is still here. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was still like,
that's cool. Like, so you had a certain amount of freedom to sort of take a musical exploration and then come back to the group. Right. That's really neat.
Right. Well, because I think with just the relationships that we had, and it was just like, well, yeah, you know, that's, like, I definitely want to come back. I miss playing with the band. And then you also go out, you see dysfunction in other groups, and you see other stuff. So it makes you appreciate that. So it's kind of hard for me to look at being committed, how you're saying, like, being committed long term, because I've always put the band first. I do have like a solo career where I play acoustic and do the looping thing, but to me that's like my second job. Like I book all that stuff around the band's schedule.
I
Where I've
see.
had a solo gig come up and I'm like all of a sudden I have to cancel because the band is going to Colorado or going to Utah
You're
or
right. That's
something
tricky.
like that. You know what I mean? And it is tricky. I feel bad, but a lot of the places I've been fortunate of playing in my solo career that they understand. And they've hired me because of the popularity of Nosotros, where they're like, we know this guy provides well with the music that he performs, so we'll hire him. So when I'm like, hey, Nosotros is doing this, a lot of places have been like, oh, that's great, yeah, cool, we'll see you in a couple of weeks, and
Yeah.
you know what I mean, we totally understand because they realize the big picture what Nosotros is doing.
Yeah.
We go out and we're representing
Right.
New Mexico on a bigger level.
Yeah.
We're not just kind of keeping the music here, we're taking the music and showing them that like, hey, New Mexico's got a lot of industry, man. Like there's a
Yeah.
lot of great things here. We got
Yeah.
a movie industry here. We got a really great music scene and music industry. You know what I mean? Where I've been fortunate enough, and you've been fortunate enough to support yourself for decades now. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's crazy to even think on that terms. Where, like I said, 9/11 for me is 23 years where I left Cruces to come here, and that's music has been my primary.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I had odd jobs here and there, but I've just straight up walked off. You know what I mean? Quit because I'm like, this is like a side or third job.
Right.
This is the first job here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's the thing with that. With Nosotros, people have to understand when they hire me on that one. I'm like, hey, if something comes up with the band comes first because that's been my vehicle, my primary. What's gotten me here today, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like it's given me the footing to be able to go do my solo shows and do stuff on my own. I have that confidence because I've learned so much from being in the band and
Yeah.
doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So to me, it's kind of like my devotion's there. You know what I mean? So I don't really know. I can see the tough thing about it is as a bass player, people want to hire you. You know what I mean? And the subbing gigs and like I you know, you've actually given me really great subbing gigs and I've given you gigs and stuff. And sometimes it's hard to do that because of the commitment to the band. Where it's like
Right.
people want you to come play and like, oh, I would love to, but I'm already booked to go do this. Even on my solo shows too, people, hey, I want to call you. Can
Yeah.
you do this? And I'm like, nah, I'm out of town that whole weekend. Like, sorry.
Right.
Like I can't.
That's how it is.
Can't do it. You know what I mean?
Can only be at one place at one time.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And to me, I'll never, you know, as long as Nosotros wants to keep going, I'll always be there for that because
Yeah.
I continue to grow and learn with that, and it's always kind of helped me push forward.
That's
on my-
wonderful.
You know, so
So you have a real good support system with Nosotros. And
yeah, it's been really great. Like, yeah, I would have never thought, you know what I mean? Like when he asked me way back then, you know what I mean? I thought about it recently because of 9/11, how it just passed, and I'm like, wow, 23 years. You just you see how much has gone by and how much has happened.
Yeah.
And it's shocking to me sometimes that I'm like still doing this. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I still like I pinch myself and I'm very grateful and I'm humble. Like, oh man, like a lot of times I'm always trying to like push because it's like, bro, that you can stop getting calls tomorrow, man. They could just stop calling you and it all just stops. Like that's the grim reality of what we do as a musician. We're like all of a sudden one day, if people just decide, or there's new players, and there's new this and that, and you start getting less and less calls,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Like, that's the really grim reality of it. And the fact that people haven't stopped calling, I'm like very, very grateful for that.
Yeah,
like,
right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's
Yeah.
it's because it's a tough thing, what we do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Let's,
We're putting all of our entire being into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, let's talk about the scene a little bit. You know,
Yeah.
what would you like to see more in our music scene in New Mexico, moving forward? You know, like how do you feel about the scene right now in New Mexico?
I feel like the scene is alive and well. There's people playing everywhere, and all kinds of new bands have come up, and new players, and all kinds of stuff like that. And New
Mhm.
Mexico is really beautiful. That like we get a lot of like people come here. Like we're drawn. Like our trumpet player in Nosotros, Dave, is from Jersey, and I think his story was just like, well, we came down here and just like never, you know, like one of those never kind of left things. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
and I know a lot of people, especially in Santa Fe, that are like that. That are like, oh, I just came to New Mexico and all of a sudden I bought a house and you know and they just end up here. So we end up with a really thriving music scene. Like we have Kim Stone who played with Spiral Gyra that moved here. We got Raul Pacheco from Ozo Motley who bought a house here in Old Town and stuff like that. So like people, there's a beauty that draws people here. And I feel like with the growth, it's a beautiful thing because it's bringing that industry here. Whereas before we go places, like people bring us out to San Diego and we have to go places, and now it's like, well, that's cool because San Diego's also coming here too, you know what I mean? And like that whole cross-pollination, and that's what we really need more of, like, because people come down here and they love our traditions and they just love everything about it, you know what I mean? Like it's really, so like I love that, and me playing Cuban music, Afro-Cuban music, it's like, how did that come to be? You know what I mean? In New Mexico, like, well, because we got really great Cuban musicians and Puerto Rican musicians. We got a really great, like, all these different communities that exist here that people don't really know about. You know what I mean? And that's what I love about it. It's like that's, you know, it brings people in and it keeps growing. You know what I mean? You can find anything you want here. Pretty much every kind of music you want. Klezmer music you want. You know what I mean? Just some bluegrass, country, some hardcore salsa, timba. You know what I mean?
What advice would you give to younger musicians who are, from New Mexico? They want to be musicians. They want to do, what you're doing. What advice would you give,
Play with heart. Play every gig. I've been seeing a lot lately, like some of these musicians, like some musicians have posted about, like, I don't get excited anymore, or I don't get like butterflies in my stomach anymore when I play. And my wife has asked me this too, like, do you ever get nervous? And I'm like, I get nervous, like, because even places I play places monthly and regularly, and I still get nervous because crowd's a crowd. You might get like 20 people that day that love you and and are all for it, and then you show up the next month and all of a sudden that crowd is just like, whatever, I'm here for my spaghetti and I'm here for my, and they're, you know what I mean? So like, to me, give it your all in every situation, because you never know who's going to be watching. And if you love to do this, then do it. Put your whole heart into it. Don't half-ass it. I see a lot of musicians that are like, oh, I get tired, and I'm like, I'll play all day. If you feed me and give me water, I'll play all day. I love it. Like, I'll never stop. Like, you know what I mean? It's fun. It's what we do. What else am I going to do? I sit at home and I practice my instruments. I learn new songs. Challenge yourself too. Play as much as you can in that. Be versed in as many styles as you can, but well versed. Like, dab and go and get your hands dirty and get into the history of the music. Like, learning to play salsa and Afro-Cuban music, you really have to get in there and learn. You can't fake that kind of stuff. Jazz, I tell people I'm not a jazz player because I've never learned or studied jazz, and I would never try to fake that in any kind of way. So to me, it's like, if you're going to study and play, learn and do as much. Now when I watch YouTube videos, I'm studying some jazz stuff, but I'm not like trying. It's more to get the knowledge, but I'm not going to be like, wow, you'll see me at a jazz jam one night playing, because I'm still not there. That's not what I'm trying to do. You know what I mean? Well, there's really great jazz players out there, but to me, like, play some country, but learn to play some country. Play some bluegrass.
So be versatile.
Yeah, be versatile.
Okay.
So, especially as a bass player, because that's what people are looking for. You know what I mean? Like, I'm fortunate enough that I play in a Latin band, so I play Latin music all the time, but then I get calls to go do some country gigs and some rock and all that. I got to show up with that hat on and be able to play that and play that well. I don't want to just show up and be like, faking my way through it. It's like, nah, like, really get into it. Enjoy that stuff, because it's really great stuff to learn. Like, I like old country, and you see these old guitar pickers and you see these old upright players and bluegrass, and you're like, those dudes are smoking, man. Like, there's some really, as a younger player and as a kid, you sometimes don't appreciate that. You're kind of like, that's why I want to play rock and roll. I want to rock. And as you get older, your taste and your choice develops, and you're like, oh, I learned to appreciate all this other music that I didn't. You know what I mean? Like, growing up New Mexican, I never wanted to play New Mexico music, but now when I listen to like old, like traditional Mexican music, I love listening to that stuff because of just what it is. I'm like, oh, bro, these dudes are jamming on the bass and stuff. It like my tastes have kind of changed. I appreciate it more musically. You know what I mean? As a kid, you're more like, I can't rock out to this, and you're more feeling it. But as an adult, I'm like, yo, I can relate to this rhythmically and like what's going on here in the playing, because you're like, oh, some of these dudes. You know, you don't appreciate that when you're younger, but now you're kind of like, I get it. You know.
Tell us about your daily routine. What's a day in the life of Gilbert Uribe? What's it look like?
It all depends on the day. If it's an off day, I usually jump on the computer and I'll get some social media posts. That's been the toughest thing with the social media stuff, is having to try to be a musician and all that, and then be on top of your social media. So I'll make posts of whatever went down for that week, and then I might do some emails and stuff about booking, you know, breakfast, coffee, and then whatever else I got to do, laundry, you know what I mean, clean, you know what I mean, I've been meaning to dust, I've been meaning to do a bunch of stuff, I got to give my dog a haircut, you know, just normal stuff. But if it's a gig day, usually I get up and I'm about to gig. It's like, all right, what do I need to prepare? Get all my stuff by the door, because some days I might have like a solo acoustic gig, and then I'll have a bass gig with Nosotros in the evening. So I have to take both sets. Fortunately, with Nosotros, I only have to bring a backpack and a bass to that gig now. So like that's easy. I'll make sure everything is in the backpack that I need.
Yeah.
But my solo stuff, I have to bring my own little PA and all that extra bells and whistles and all that stuff. So it's like making sure you got everything, you don't leave anything behind. Because, you know, sometimes you're gone and you're like, I ain't going back. I won't be home for another 12 hours. You're like, I'll be home at like 1 in the morning. You know what I mean?
Right,
so,
right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Who's your top 3 bass players?
Ooh. James Jameson, the Godfather. Because before I ever played any solo or any salsa or Latin music, I wanted to be a funk player and a soul player. And Francis Rocco Prestia from Tower of Power. Yeah, he was a huge...
R.I.P.
Yeah, R.I.P. And I would say Sal Cuevas.
Okay.
From like Iraquere, and he played with Ruben Blades and a bunch of cats.
Nice.
And he kind of really incorporated the slap and more of the ghost noting. He kind of had like where he would incorporate funk into the tumbao. You know what I mean?
Nice.
So he's a big influence.
Cool. Nice.
That's tough when you say 3 though, because you're like, the list can go
on and on. The list can go on and on.
But honestly, those would have to be the same. I know Prestia and Jameson are close, but Jameson was a whole other beast because he did the soul and all the ballads and the Motown stuff.
Yeah.
And Tower Power was very funk, and they had really great ballads too, but the styles were a bit different. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so like the two, I feel they're not too close to each other. You know what I mean? Like, so that's why I include both of those two.
Interesting.
Into.
Yeah, that's great. Well, now we're gonna hear Gilbert give us a very special performance with his bass and his computer. And you want to tell us anything about what we're gonna hear, or?
No, probably just jam a little bit of something on. I always have these little bass ideas whenever we're sound checking and stuff like that. So I might just bust a little something out like that.
Okay, great. That's gonna be awesome. now we have a short reel from the band Nosotros. Enjoy.
Como en primavera, renaciendo el girasol, tengo la plena esperanza que renacerá el amor, la ilusión y la confianza que me muestre el camino hacia el cambio. Por la enseñanza que nos dejó el dolor, y sabes que puede ver falsedad en lo que tiran. Basta, te tenemos en la mira. No sirve solo recordar, tu voz solo sabe soltar mentiras. Ya tu hablar, pues todos se dan cuenta ya. Mentiras, 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 mentiras. Oye, nunca. Estoy pensando y tengo sentimiento, cambiando, buscando cómo vivir la vida sin pena desde hoy, llamando a todos estoy, cada día vive tu vida. Para toda mi gente en el más allá, le cantamos a su memoria. Para toda mi gente en el más allá, le cantamos a su memoria. Para mi familia que se ha marchado, quiero decirle que lo voy a recordar. No importa si no están de carne y hueso, su espíritu y presencia están acá. Y no los olvidaré. No. Amalia o Isabel, Clarisa o Maribel, Sara Clara, ¿cómo se llamará? Ojos claros son a ver, piel morena, no. La señorita del abanico va por el puente del fresco río. Los caballeros con sus bebidas miran al puente sin barandilla. The rhythm of your stuff.
Right.
Nah, it's the cowbell, bro. It's Don't Fear the Reaper, bro.